first of all, congratulations on the book and the TV show. I think both are absolutely brilliant. Yep. And the one thing I just wanted to ask you, because obviously you're dealing with some pretty nasty people and have done through most of your life, but what's the security situation for yourself? What sort of measures do you have to take to stay safe? You're doing a book tour at the minute. I mean, what goes on with things like that?
Well, I had a good turnout in Belfast, as you would have seen. Felt pretty safe in there. I take the attitude that I'd be very, very careful, but I don't, I'm not going to Sainsbury's, and I'm not going to football. I'm just really careful. I just, there's other considerations other than myself, and I'm just considerate of those. And when I do go out like on the book tour, there's a reasonable. The signings are invite only, the speeches are invite only, and we have people on the door. I don't think being mindful or careful has to be obtrusive, so I keep it as inobtrusive as possible, and generally go about my life as diligently as possible. I'm not really bothered about me. Obviously, I have other considerations. Other people who are either members of my family or people that I'm meeting with or people that I'm socializing with. I don't go to places where I feel I might put them in threat or danger. It's all in the book, really, Gary. You should read the book.
Talking about the book and the TV series, has that level of threat or personal threat to either you or your family and friends, has that increased over the last couple? I mean, we've had 2 episodes have been aired so far, but everything's available on the ITV hub, as you know. But has that increased, and how does that manifest itself?
Well, not necessarily. I'm not going to go into specific incidences, but obviously at a time when your identity is known to a wider public, people will, for a few days, maybe even a week, I guess, recognize you. One of the interesting things is I've been on television loads of times, and people in the pub and so on and so forth see you on the news, see you on the television, and have no idea what it's about. I think people misunderstand, really. And I like to put it into perspective all the time that although I think Britain's an increasingly racist country, which isn't something I say lightly or even like saying, it doesn't mean that they're all members of fascist organizations or members of fascist groups. And I think as long as you're careful, when I go out, I go out with a purpose, and that purpose is very rarely to antagonize people or chase people. I guess the program, particularly episodes 3 and 4, would probably antagonize some people. But I just don't really like to talk about it too much. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think the documentary that accompanies the drama people might find that more antagonistic. But the fact of the matter is, this is a true story. I mean, the documentary the drama is almost completely spot on to what happened. And very few people can deny that. Some people are denying it. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to know how to explain it. Everyone I work with is extremely careful about their security, about each other's safety. Everyone looks after each other, and it's absolutely no different now than before. The subject matter, fascists, Nazis, race haters, are always, in my opinion, professional and personal, people who are potentially dangerous. And so, regardless whether the drama's on or not, we're all careful about our security and our safety.
I guess it gives you some
a crap answer, but there you go.
No, it's a good answer. I mean, I guess it gives you some level of cover. The fact that a Liverpudlian is playing you in the program as well. So that's an interesting thing.
Yes, it's had absolutely no difference to me at all. Being played by Liverpudlian, it makes no difference at all. Like, no, I'm not bothered because. First of all, he's an excellent actor, and I just didn't want James Corden to play him.
Actually, one thing I think the meat of this has to be about you. You mentioned this is an increasingly racist country,
Yeah.
and by that I assume you mean the whole of the UK, but maybe more particularly England. I don't know, but can you?
Yeah, I'm not going to go and point.
Let's not go there.
You know, the particular jurisdictions of the United Kingdom. I think one of the reasons since 2010 we haven't had a resurgent electoral far right, given that they had a million votes in 2009, is the narrative of central government has become harsher, has become more cruel, has become more uncaring, in that, you know, it hand in hand with this increasing incompetence, means that for the things that the extreme far right may have some sort of populist appeal, being cruel to immigrants, having a harsher immigration policy, there's no real space for that for them. And what has always underpinned that ideology, the far right ideology, has been violence anyway. And so at the moment, they're stuck with violence, their violent thoughts, their violent actions. But electorally, they have absolutely there's nowhere for them to go. In fact, one of our far right parties, For Britain, which was led by an Irish woman who anglicised her Irish name to sound more British, recently gave up the ghost and just said that, you know, there was no appetite for their kind of politics. To a degree, I would agree with that. But I think the reality is that we're witnessing what I guess to a degree is some of the more palatable views they have in terms of its hostility to non-white people.
You mentioned in another interview that the threat level, though, is higher now than probably at the time.
Yes, the threat level would be higher, and I do think partly, and I need to wonder how I can articulate this without demanding suddenly that the far right are getting 10% in the polls, but because they aren't engaged electorally, their fallback normal position is violence anyway. We're not talking about increased numbers. We're not, you know, I think when we talk about an increased threat level or the increased likelihood of violence or an act of terrorism, people think, oh, that they must be increasing in size and number. They're not in particular. Their numbers are very low and very flat, but they are operating in what I say a volatile environment. You just have to look at sections of the media or social media to see how, in really what are really difficult testing social times for people who are trying to live and get on with their lives, how many opportunities there are to turn something into something that it's not, and that the potential for violence in the way that these people can or will react to things that are troubling or unsettling is with violence. And more, I think post 2017, when national action finally finished, and not 2016 when the government did, is that some of the ideas and ideology that they laid the groundwork for, increasing participation in child sexual abuse, increasing engagement in Satanism, increasing exploration and exploring means around violence and terror and things like that. We've seen more and more people caught in possession with some of the tools for that, or certainly some of the educational tools for that, and some people caught, if it's at all possible. I don't want to talk about thought police, but certainly we're seeing more and more people who aren't aligned to organizations, but are in the thread of these ideas, or are in touch with the ideas, or are downloading the ideas. We're seeing greater and greater numbers of these people caught and convicted. I think I said it was, if it's the same interview, I think it's in regard to that, it's sort of pleasing, I guess, the state now has a forensic way of analysing and dealing with the far right, and they are going in hard and they're going in early. And the rights and wrongs of that, you know, can be discussed elsewhere. But the whole point is, I think people that want to live in a civil and civilized society is trying to work out how we counter those ideas, how we counter the ideology, how we counter people who want to, or people who are drawn to those ideas. I also very much am not of the opinion that somebody goes looking for football results and suddenly comes off the internet a Nazi. I don't believe people are sort of radicalized in the way that it's portrayed. I think people aren't particularly stupid, and I don't think radicalization is accidental. And I think sometimes what happens is a grievance that can't be adequately answered, or can't be we can't answer it perhaps progressively enough or forcefully enough. That's what sends people out looking for those other answers. I don't think it's a coincidental thing, and I think that's one of the things that has made the ideology increasingly dangerous and the ideas around terrorism increasingly prevalent in a small, really small section. I mean, not every far right activist in the United Kingdom is going to be wannabe terrorist, but such an ideology and such thoughts and ideas of theirs are underpinned by violence anyway. So I do think there has to be a balance between what we consider to be an act of preparation of terrorism, and also the fact that some people are just obsessed by violence. When the Home Secretary banned National Action in 2016, she described them as racist and homophobic, and said that had no place in our society. But realistically, she was describing 4 or 5 far-right organizations. She was realistically, in my opinion, describing UKIP. She was, in my opinion, describing probably some Conservative Party MPs. The issue has been previously, I think, what they didn't know and understand centrally about the far-right terror threat. But again, I think they probably have a far greater and forensic handle on it now than they did 5 years ago.
One of the things that struck me in the book is exactly what you said, that switch from I mean, you look at people like Nick Griffin and Dyson as almost benign figures compared to these maniacs that
I don't know about benign. I think I don't want those two harassing me. I mean, I don't know if they can even work emails to send horrible emails. I don't know about benign figures. I think in the case of Nick Griffin is that he just disavowed electoral politics because nothing, in his opinion, could happen without him. And he helped destroy the BNP, not as well as we did, not as forcefully as we had done. And then he and Jim Dowson have sort of gone around Europe, particularly Baltic states, very much showing off that they're quite prepared to hang out with paramilitaries, very much prepared to show that they're prepared to hang out with people who I would say are engaged in violence. I don't think they're benign. I think Griffin had set the tone for what came and what happened. I would, Nick Griffin is not going to go and murder anyone, neither is Jim Dowson. But I still think they play a really pernicious role in society. The only thing really, but to add on that, I mean, I saw Nick Griffin in Budapest, and it was like a broken down former celebrity posing for selfies and signing autographs. But they are equally as hated by their former admirers. So that's something interesting. But they become, you see, their ideology or their actions are now considered old hat and passé. It doesn't mean they're necessarily benign. It just means that they're a different level of nastiness to what concerns us now.
Why should people who have watched the TV series buy your book?
Yes, a very good question, Gary, and I wish they all would. I think you would buy the book, you would buy the walk-in if you wanted to know a little bit more about the relationship between Robbie Mullen and I, and also, I mean, we spoke about it off camera, didn't we? Just some of the other adventures of the Fat James Bond, which for some reason the Germans call me. It just says a little bit more about the adventures of the Stephen Graham character. But it's good. You can get it from Partisan Books or Hope Not Hate. It's called The
No
Walk.
problem. Thank you very much for your time today. I know that you've been jetting around the country, if you can call Belfast and Dublin, but the tour continues, I guess. Do you want to say something about your tour and where else you're going to be, or what's happening
Yeah,
with that?
I'm not really sure on what particular date order they go, but it's London, Birmingham, Manchester, Cardiff, Newcastle, Swansea, and no Glasgow. I don't know why Glasgow. What have I done? What have I done to upset you, you bastards? Buy my book.